accredited under the Washington Accord. That means engineers in Kenya can work across member states. So we are encouraging engineering and mobility. So in terms of education, the body is working closely with the academia to make sure that the engineers that are coming out are able to address the challenges that are facing the local wananchi. And just to finalize, in terms of even the standards, the most important thing is even the enforcement, because the policies that we have and the programs that we have, unless there is adequate enforcement of the standards and the laws, then you find that there could be shortcuts in the industry. And that is where we have this collapsing of infrastructure when there are shortcuts. So the board is keen in terms of regulations, in terms of coming up with the working together with other stakeholders to come up with standards that meet or address the challenges that we are having, climate change, and so on and so forth.
All right. Many thanks, Anthony, for setting that foundation or setting the stage for that conversation on how we can actually fund our smart cities. However, at this point, I would actually respectfully want to ask my panelists to kindly walk off stage for just a moment as we allow our keynote speaker this afternoon to make his address. I'll also kindly request to have the podium back on stage. Let's kindly walk off stage, please. Asante sana. Now, it's a conversation that Anthony Okere has laid the foundation for, and we will be continuing with in just a moment. But with those presentations now setting the stage, we'd like to move on to our keynote address on integrated planning and smart urban development. We've talked about innovations shaping Kenya's smart cities, from the EGP system to transparency in Kura. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, it is my pleasure to invite our keynote speaker to the stage. That is Dr. Charles Hinga. He is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Housing and Urban Development, to deliver his keynote address. Please join me in giving him a warm round of applause.
Jeff, I'll make sure that I come for my honorary doctorate. I've been called engineer. Today I'm a doctor. Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to join you here this afternoon to have a conversation about smart cities. And I don't do very well with written speeches, but the challenge of again, speaking like a preacher is we become very indisciplined and in terms of time. So I'll ask my friend Jeff to be my timekeeper. If I get carried away, just remind me. Ladies and gentlemen, I think for us to be able to discuss how or where this country is going, it's good to reflect where we are coming from as a nation. And I want to just put forth a few facts, because this housing agenda and the urbanization agenda has obviously elicited a lot of debate in the country. And of course, a lot of views. But I want us to, first of all, have a conversation about facts. And then we can disagree on how to solve a problem. If we agree we have a problem. But if we don't agree we have a problem, then we do have a problem, right? Okay? So, this country of ours, we are one of the fastest urbanizing countries in the world, as most of you will know. There is a study by the World Bank that shows that we are urbanizing at over 4% per annum. So what does that mean? It means that every year we have over 500,000 people that are moving to the urban areas. That's fact number one. Okay? 2, our education system every year is churning out 800,000 plus young people are joining the job market every year. So the question then is this economy of ours able to create enough jobs to absorb these 800,000? Majority of them will find themselves in the urban areas. Now, there is another strange phenomenon, and I think it's one of the things that I'll put it out there. Maybe Jeff and your team, you can commission a documentary just to try and find out why is the cost of land in Kenya so expensive that the Center for Affordable Housing in Africa showed that land in Nairobi is now the most expensive in the entire continent of Africa. What is this that is driving the high cost of land? And maybe some of you are wondering, why are we talking about the high cost of land? What is it got to do with urbanization? It has everything to do with urbanization. And then the fourth phenomenon that I'm just setting the context, is that this country of ours, we are one of the most unequal societies. Unequal societies. When you look at the percentage of Kenyans carrying a pay slip, I'm not talking about hustlers in the Juakali sector and mama mbogas and so on. Now I'm talking about someone who is in the formal income. Only 3% of pay slip carrying Kenyans earn 150,000 shillings and more. 75% of all pay slip carrying Kenyans earn less than 50,000 shillings. Now, you're asking, what has that got to do with urbanization? It has everything to do with urbanization. A study has been done by a professor in university in California that shows the correlation between the high cost of land and low wages. And where the cost of land is so high and the wages are low, what the cities tend to do, they push people out. They push people out. All right? But where will these people go? Where will they go? Now, majority of these people are working people. They're not lazy people who came to Nairobi to look at skyscrapers. No. These are working people, and most of them are your workers, either your domestic worker, your driver that brought you here, or even if it's a taxi that you took. Where do they go? Because they cannot be able to afford the rentals in the core. But they need to be closer to your home or to where they work. But the system is pushing them out. So where do they go to? Ladies and gentlemen, they end up forming what we call slums or informal settlements. Slums or informal settlements does not just happen. It happens because the cost of land is expensive, the wages are very low for the majority of your people, and the cost of transport is high and unreliable. Because ordinarily, what will happen if you had an affordable public transport system that is reliable, then when they are getting pushed by this system, should I walk around or I need to stand? I'm free to walk? Okay, cameraman, I'm preaching. I'm just getting fired up. all right? And the magic handkerchief will come out at some point. Although you can see now I've really shrunk, so I don't perspire, as Jeff will say, not sweat, as much as I used to. So, if the cost of transport was reliable, was affordable, and it was reliable, ordinarily, these people who are being pushed out by the system will go to Mlolongo, will go to Kisaju in Kajiado, and, 30, 40 minutes there at their place of work. So they can go and build a home where the land is cheap. But we don't have a reliable public transport system. They have to take 3-4 matatus to get to their place of work. So where do they go to? They'll end up in Kibra. They'll end up in Mukuru. Most of you think they went there to Mukuru because they like it. They went to Mukuru because it is close to industrial area. And they can walk to work because they don't have enough money to pay for the transport. So ladies and gentlemen, I am the PS that is in charge of slums in Kenya. Okay, part of my job that you pay me for is to figure out how to sort out these informal settlements. But here is a constant. With 500,000 people moving into urban areas every year, and with our economy not creating enough well-paying jobs, what is happening to the slums? Okay, and then there is another thing. There is another constant. Land, our land as a country is not expanding. So Nairobi boundary, and the more people are coming in, is not expanding. Yes, no? Yes. And then I want to throw one last one, because this is normally a 4.5-hour engagement. So I need to compress it in 10 minutes. Okay, that's almost a miracle. We are also told that as a country, we are food insecure. We're spending 500 billion shillings to import food. 500 billion shillings, 500 billion shillings to import food. But then, the land that is supposed to be for growing food, what are we doing with it? Especially these, us from Murema. Tunapenda hii mambo ya katakata. Sindio? Maguta. Brought, right? So, we've turned Kiambu, which is to be a bread basket of this country, because real estate, if the cost of land is so high, it is high because of real estate. So why plant tea, coffee, maize when you can kata and sell it for a few more coins? And we have fragmented our land so much that commercial farming is becoming a problem. So ladies and gentlemen, this is what is called urbanization 101. Okay? Urbanization, even if you Google or you research on urbanization is associated with a high quality of life. Urbanization is associated with a high quality of life. But the inverse of high quality of life is happening here in Kenya. Our urbanization, in fact, I dare say that the most marginalized Kenyan today is one called urban poor. That's the most marginalized person. And I'll tell you. So before we even talk about smart cities, because maybe I don't know what your understanding of smart cities is, can we first of all understand where are we? And sometimes, maybe this conversation helps us to understand, sometimes as government we look like we're crazy, we don't know what we're doing. Okay? Now, this same person that I have painted the picture for you, this is a worker. So let's forget about people who are not working. This is a person who is working, Their wages are too low. They can't afford the rentals, and you've pushed them to the slums. Now, I don't know how many of you know something about life in the slums. At least I can tell you about it, not because I have visited it. It's because I was born in one. I was born in an informal settlement in Nakuru called Bondeni, and then I grew up in another informal settlement called Kwaronda, Kaptembwa. So how is life in the slum? You live in a small, tiny space, okay? Maybe 3 by 3, 3 by 4 at most. Now, I don't know whether you know what 3 by 4 looks like, but it is very small space. The bed sitters that we are providing under our affordable housing program are 21, 22 square meters. We're talking about half of that. Less than the kiosk that you go buy tea and whatever there. That is 3 by 3 or 3 by 4. Now, bear with me because as I said, what I want us to do is to construct the problem, then let's disagree on how to solve it. And if you have better ideas on how we solve it, we are welcome. But not fixing the problem is actually not one of the options that is on my desk. You know? Because the do nothing is more costly. And I'll prove to you just now. So, let's go back to the slum. So what is happening in the slum? And I'm telling you this, and I'm speaking authoritatively because, as I said, I am the PS in charge of slums. So it is every day I wake up, I have to figure out how to deal with the slums, and so on and so forth. Now, we have 2 types of slums. We have a slum that is on public land, meaning it is government land. And we have a slum that is on private land. Majority of the slums are on private land. Mukuru, the bulk of Mukuru, we have pockets of public land, the bulk of Mukuru is private land. Now, here is a conundrum, okay? Maybe some things you didn't know, which may help you to understand why we're doing things the way we are doing them. A private slum, as a government, I am restricted from providing services like water and electricity. Why? Because what message will you be passing as government that you go invade any land that you see, establish these structures, and I'll come and give you water, I'll come and give you services. I have some money for improving the slums. The bulk of that money comes from the World Bank. And one of the conditions for me to spend that money is that I cannot spend that money on private slum. So now let me tell you how difficult that is. You know Kiambu County? Kiambu County is one of the largest counties in this country. Yes, no? In terms of population. Not size, but population, right? You know Homa Bay County? Homa Bay County, I give Homa Bay County more money to deal with their slums than Kiambu. Because the slums in Homa Bay are largely on public land. Majority of the slums in Kiambu are on private land. So even when you go to the equitable share, Kiambu ordinarily gets multiples of what Homa Bay gets. But in this money that I have to solve the slum problem, I have to give Homa Bay more money than Kiambu and Nairobi, for that matter. So, if government is not providing basic services, water and electricity, and by the way, we are still talking about smart cities, okay? I hope I haven't lost you. Maybe you wanted us to talk about, you know, Internet of Things, AI, and so we can talk about those things. But let's first of all deal with the the status quo before we talk about the ambition. So, because government is not providing basic services, and they're called basic services because they are basic, they are needed. Nobody can survive without water. Yes, no? So if government is not providing water, and the people who are living there, they need water, who provides the water? Who provides the water? There is a gap that is filled in by somebody. You can call them water barons, water cartels, whatever name you want to give them, that's okay. But they're the ones who are providing that service. Now, they're providing that service at what cost? Now, listen to this, because when I said that the person who is living in the slum is the most marginalized Kenyan today, let me prove it to you. These guys who sell the water in the slums, they charge, listen to this, 172% more. 172% more for water than what Nairobi County charges me, Hinga. Okay? And it is take it or leave it. But they can't survive without water. Basic. But government can't provide the water in those areas. 172% more. So this is already somebody who is poor. The system has pushed them and balkanized them into this tiny space. And while they're still smarting from, and they probably work harder than you and I, wake up early in the morning so that they can walk to work, leave late in the evening, okay? Only to go, and they have little money, and they pay 172% more for water than you and I. They need electricity. The electricity that is provided in the slums is illegal connection. Because for you to get a connection, most of you guys, mna a few houses here and there, so you know that for you to go to Kenya Power and get a connection, you need title number, you need, sindio? Hii title ni ya nani? If you just went and took somebody's land, how are you going to prove that the land is yours? So Kenya Power is not coming to connect you. But those guys have power. Yes, no? See, they do have power. Aha. So how much are they paying for that power? Because they're paying for it. They're just not paying Kenya Power. And the person they are paying, that person does not pay Kenya Power. So muone ile ukora hii iko hii dunia yetu hii. Ndio tunapamba. When you, so don't aspire to be the PS in charge of slums. It's a hard job. You don't upgrade very fast. So they pay 142% more than what Kenya Power charges you and I. This is a study done by the World Bank, not Hinga. And if you want to download it, it is called Unaffordable and Unavailable. 2017 study by the World Bank. Go download it today. Unaffordable and Unavailable. Read it before you become a commentator on stuff that maybe you don't understand. Just empower yourself a little bit. So this person, that life that is already earning very little money, and life has just decided to character develop them even further and punish them. In fact, the terminology we use is the penalty of poverty. You are poor and life decides to punish you more. Here's the third one. Okay? They pay to use a toilet. They pay to use a toilet. You know, when you listen to some of the stories in the slums, they're harrowing stories. So you've hustled the whole day to get some money to put food on the table. And then after eating, of course, you know, some of it is not retained. Yes, no? I mean, okay, let's not but so you're sitting there and thinking that there is a cost that is coming because I have to use a toilet. And if you don't have that money, It doesn't mean that you don't relieve yourself. You do. But where do you relieve yourself? They relieve themselves in something called a flying toilet. Jwala. Plastic bag. So where do you think that plastic bag goes to? Where do you think they call it flying? Most of it ends up in the river, which I don't even know why we call it Nairobi River, because that's Nairobi sewage. Whatever is running there is not river, that's a sewage. So, we can talk about smart cities. But here is a problem. You know, if that problem affects maybe 10% of our population, you can say, okay, we have a problem, not a very big problem. Now, here is the problem. 70% of all the urban dwellers live the way I have described. 70%. 70% of all our urban population, the people who are living in Nairobi, 70. So you probably sitting here are not part of the 70%. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a problem or we don't have a problem? Do you have a problem? Okay. Now we can talk about how to fix it. Okay. And I can tell you part of what we are doing under the housing program is the first step towards fixing that problem. Okay. And how are we doing it? We have benchmarked how much rental are they paying in the slum, in that shack today. They're paying about 2,000. Go take that study. We have done a special study for Mukuru. The average rental in Mukuru, and that is 2019, was 2,500 shillings. So under our program of housing, we are asking them to pay the same amount of money, 2,500, but for a house that has all the basic services and more. So they have water, they have a toilet, they have electricity, they pay the same amount of money that they are paying in the shack. Over and above that, I give them piped gas, which is prepaid. So if you have 10 bob and that's all you have, you can make a meal for 10 bob. Okay? Ingine lazima ununue makaa. Na makaa ya 10 bob asijani iko. Okay? They have high-speed fiber connection. It's a utility. Now you're talking about smart. They have a school. They have an ECD right there next door. They have a market. They have shops. They have a health facility. And they pay how much? 2,500. Same amount of money. In this pocket, you pay to use a toilet. In this pocket, you pay 172% more for water. In this pocket, same amount of money, you pay 142% for electricity. When you transfer that money, same money, into this other pocket, you live in a decent house where you pay just like everybody else for water. You don't pay to use a toilet. Now, most of you saw us handing over keys in Mukuru. And I don't know whether you guys, you followed that story. You know, and I know you twisted, you know, there was a lot of fake news. They even took a lady there, shame. Wakasema, this lady is a constant phase. She's from Kisii. She's from whatnot. Anyway, Jerusha, beautiful, nice lady. You know? Hii kazi yetu ni ngumu. You know, you try and do the right thing, then you have to battle with the fake news. But it's okay, because the only way you fight fake news is by just staying at it and doing the right thing. Now, that lady who was paying 2,500 in a shack, if you look at all the TikTok videos that were taken, which means these were not paid by Gava. If it was Nation, they would have said Gava has paid Nation reporters or whatever it is. TikTok, I'm not paying anybody. What you realize is that majority of the videos that were taken in a toilet. Because, can you imagine, you know, this is, I don't know whether you guys are with me. The conversation we're having is about a basic thing like a toilet. It's something you don't even talk about, do you? In your house, you probably have 5. You even have one called a cloakroom. Jina mgumu hapa ya kizungu. Cloakroom. Kuna ingine ni en suit. Every bedroom is en suit. You don't talk about a toilet. These guys, the most content was taken in a toilet, sitting on a toilet. And they cannot believe that. They cannot believe that they have their own toilet. They don't have to share it, and they don't have to pay. Things that we take for granted. Now, because I need to wrap up, I want to ask the question. That person that lives in the slum, there is nowhere where they made an application to live in a slum. Yes, no? You who live in a leafy suburb, you didn't make any application to God to live where you are. And so this now takes us back to the spirit of the Constitution. Because our Constitution talks about us being equal. How can we be equal when 70% of our brothers and sisters, people who take care of your children, I mean, what happened to humanity? What happened to us? What happened to us? It's not my problem. What happened to being my brother's keeper? And we become so okay. We become so okay because it's not me. And you know what? The problem is just getting bigger. And let me tell you, they do nothing. They do nothing. I told you, one thing remains a constant. The land remains a constant. So if they run out of Mukuru space, where do you think they're going to come? You say, oh no, you know me, I have a big gated wall in Karen. It's safe, there is security. Let me tell you, one day, they do nothing. They'll come and build right outside your own home. Because there's one thing that remains a constant. The land remains a constant, and the urbanization rate is a constant, or even getting more. So 500,000 people are moving in. We are not creating better jobs. They get pushed into this penalty of poverty. They have got to look for somewhere to live. Where will they go? Right outside your own home. So today you can say, it's none of my problem. What country are you living for your children? So this is the kind of conversation we need to have. And that is what is captured in our Constitution. And if actually I want to challenge you to go and read the Constitution, it talks about we are equal. But how, it sounds like the animal farm. That we are equal, but others are more equal. There are people that seems to have more rights than others. And that is why Article 43 of the Constitution was set up. Because there is something which is called social justice. There's something called social justice. Okay, let me come down and talk about smart cities. The Bill of Rights. Go read Article 20 of the Constitution. It's the only article that I have read. I'm not a lawyer. I have sat with my lawyer friends and I've asked them, this Article 20 of the Constitution that we don't talk about actually seems to be limiting even the powers of judges. Go read it. It's the only article in our Constitution that tells a judge how to interpret the law. Go read 20, 1, 2, 3, and 5. Go read them. It talks about how you apply the law. It tells the judge that when you have a case in front of you, and that case is about the Bill of Rights, it's about social justice, you must make a determination where you accord more rights than less. It tells the judge where the government is trying to right the wrong of social injustice. Article 20, Section 5, it says, as a judge, you cannot stop the government. Even sometimes I wonder all these orders we get. The Constitution tells the judges, you can't stop. In fact, we have a lot of busybodies that run to court all the time. And I wonder, Article 20 says that you should be running to court to sue government because we have not provided more rights to more people. So, before we talk about smart cities, let's fix the basic. Let's fix the basics. And you know what? We will not, this government is not going to solve the housing problem, is not going to solve the poverty problem. And by the way, because I don't have a lot of time, and I talked about two issues. So I have shown you about the penalty of poverty, okay? And I agree, because I sit with economists, and sometimes mpaka wananitukana kwa TV. And they say, you know, you can't talk about economics. Let me tell you, I don't need to be a professor of economics to understand common sense economics. What is common sense economics? Common sense economics says that if you want to grow the economy, right? If you want to grow the economy, all right? So first of all, go to the sectors that create more jobs. One of the sectors that creates most jobs is construction and real estate. And I'll give you one example, and then you can take that and apply it to almost 70 different products. Cement. You know, you think cement originates from a shop. Cement originates from a quarry. Quarry, where you start with limestone. That's where you create the first job. The person who is taking that raw material and loading it onto a truck is another job. The driver of the truck is another job. Then you go to the factory, and then you mix it with this thing and you call it clinker, add what for it to become cement. Every stage, there is a job that you're creating. And then you finish, you package it, another job. That packaging material, whether it came from pan paper or timboroa or wherever it came from, another job that you've created. Okay? Then you package it. The person who loads it onto the truck is different from the one who loaded the raw material. Another job that you've created. Then there is another driver who drives another truck, not the same one that brought the raw material, to the site. Another job. The person who offloads from this truck, I'm just talking about cement, is another job. Then you start the work of mjengo. Kwa sababu watu wengi wanasema, oh, Hinga anatuambia mambo ya affordable housing and jobs. Who says we all want mjengo jobs? Let me tell you, the mjengo jobs are the least. Most of the jobs are being created where you don't see them. So you create more jobs on site. So ladies and gentlemen, for you to create, and people are saying, hey, why are you focusing on housing? Nani hana kwao? You know, how can you say nani hana kwao in the setup that I have just described to you? Is that kwao? No. So, I need to be disciplined now. I can see maybe you're like, okay, we need, this fellow needs to talk about the housing levy. Okay. Maybe that's what you came to hear. Your housing levy is safe. And let me tell you, your housing levy has helped change this country. I read an article, I don't know, I'm just hoping it is your, I don't know whether it was Business Daily, so I don't want to attribute it to you, Jeff, yet. But I read it somewhere yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that said, in August, the cement production in the country is the highest ever in any month since this country was formed. Last August. But of course, they can't attribute it to housing. They say it's because of roads. Roads don't use a lot of cement. You know, we're not building concrete roads. Cement ni komjengo, ni nyumba. So part of what we are doing under this housing program is that we are killing many birds with one stone. We are providing dignity to our people, taking them out of the penalty of poverty without them having to spend more money than they are spending where they are. That's number one. Number two, we are creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, and they're there to be seen. Number three, maybe next week I hear the director of procurement was here in the morning. So he just needs to fix me a little bit here because we are all under EGP. And by the way, the EGP is the right thing to do, but I don't want to go there. It is the right way to go. I know there's a lot of resistance. It's the right way to go because we are losing a lot of money as government through procurement fraud. That's what it is. I mean, just because I'm government, I have to pay 10 times for this bottle of water. That doesn't make sense. And by the way, if I buy this water from a supermarket using government money, I'll go to jail. If I steal your money, I'll probably never go to jail. But if I do the right thing, I'm likely to go to jail. This is the fraud of this whole procurement madness. That's why we need EGP. You know, that's why we need EGP. Anyway, let me come back to, there's someone else who can talk about EGP more. But right now, and please hear me well, because of the volume of work, right now as we speak, we have 247,000 units under construction. That is a lot of construction. That is a lot of construction, good people. That means that we have over 40 million tons of cement, 18 million tons of steel. 18 million tons of steel. That's a whole lot of economy that is happening in this country. There are lots of jobs that are being created. But let me tell you, and this is now to the economists out there, you told us that we can't create jobs through housing. Let me tell you about the economics of housing. Anything done at scale, if you leverage large economies of scale, you can turn it into an industry. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know we import sockets in this country? That small thing that you see there, we import them. Maybe sockets, it doesn't resonate well. Hinges.